and caused a lot of confusion on the grounds yesterday, in particular, Paul, because we've known about these between 7 and 11 players being exposed to pair for almost a week now. Mannarino had played 2 matches already since his exposure had been revealed. This was a lot of confusion yesterday, Paul.
It was, and I think it's ongoing, right? I mean, one of the complexities of all this is all the different bodies involved. You have Nassau County, which is where the hotel is that the players are staying, one of them. And then you have New York City officials, which is Flushing Meadows. And then you have the state. And then you have the USTA. And the USTA is trying to abide by all 3. So I think that there's a lot of malleable and moving parts depending on what's going on. And that's why there seems to be a lot of ambiguity. And I think that that's why a lot of us are trying to figure it out. But look, this is an imperfect situation in an imperfect time in history. I think everyone's trying to figure out how to do the best they can. But with those governance situations and that structure like that, it gets very complicated.
And obviously, and we've said this a number of times, people are learning how to do this on the fly. There's no playbook, Martina, for how to handle a pandemic. And I know best efforts between all the governing bodies. But how do you feel for Sasha Zverev in a situation like this? He's getting delayed 3 hours. His preparation gets thrown off. His eating pattern gets thrown off. He could have probably, I guess, asked to default the match if he felt like it.
I think it's a bit of an overreach. I mean, talk about closing the barn door after the horses got out. Mannarino has been there for a week. You know, I only wish that schools had as much protocol as we are having at the U.S. Open. I would feel much better about sending my kid to school right now if we were as careful in everyday life as the U.S. Open has been. So I think the bubble has been amazing. And they need to, if they're going to enforce the protocol, then they need to really do it as it happens, not a week later.
We do want to show you the names that are involved so you understand who is affected by this quote-unquote bubble within a bubble and the increased protocols. They're calling it pairs 11. The 7 that we have confirmed are Gasquet, Mannarino, Barrere, Roger Vasselin, and then the 3 WTA players, Mladenovic, Flipkins, and Bonaventure. We have Medvedev in yellow because he's denied that he's part of it, and then Mahou and Jumher. There are some questions, Jim, that these players are really in full lockdown except for when they're playing or training.
Yeah, and so you feel for the players that are in the tournament, but you also feel for the players who are now out of the tournament but have to remain in quarantine in their rooms in the hotel until next Saturday, so they don't get to properly prepare for the clay court season. There's an article in the New York Times by Chris Clary today reporting that the governing bodies and the governments have tried to get an agreement for a private plane to take the French players home. That didn't work out, so they're still stuck here. But I think it's worth us taking the big picture view and understanding that the USTA historically, they're big, they're powerful, they're traditionally slow-moving, kind of like an aircraft carrier. In this environment, they've been forced to be like a jet ski, avoiding mines in the water everywhere they look, and that's been going on for months. I could tell you about conversations, if I could, that I've had with USTA and ATP officials along this road. It has been a rocky, rugged road, and the fact that this tournament is taking place at all, borderline business miracle, and it's amazing how it's been going. Everyone in tennis, I think, should be very grateful that we're here. It's not without its hardships. I don't want to downplay what these players are going through. But big picture, this has been an incredible achievement for tennis to actually get this tournament on the rails. And here we are almost halfway through the tournament, but they've been in the bubble now since August 15. It's been going on a while.
I think a lot of us agree with that and admire the ability that the USTA has had to pivot and react to these situations. The players who are in that restrictive bubble, that ultra quarantine, don't all feel that way. Kiki Mladenovic has been sending out social media posts saying she feels like a prisoner and a criminal, that she can't leave. Andy Roddick responded to her, Martina, saying, hey, look, Kiki, prisoners and criminals don't get to play a sport for 6 figures. Safety protocols are the only reason we have a U.S. Open at all. Is Andy right, or does Kiki have a legitimate beef?
Look, we do the best that we can. Somebody's always going to get the raw end of the deal, and maybe Mladenovic got that. But as our friend and colleague William McAfee used to say, no bitching on the yacht. You know, all perspective. We get to play tennis, and yes, some of us are suffering more than others. But hey, you know, again, as Billie Jean King says, champions adjust. So get over it and just deal with it and do the best that you can with what you have.
No bitching on the yacht. That's, I feel, a T-shirt coming on there.
Bill McAtee.
Paul, from what you've heard from Taylor and other players on the ground in the bubble, what's life like? How restrictive is it, and how good are the players at adhering to these protocols?
Well, I've been in touch with a few of them, and generally the feedback's been pretty good. I think the biggest challenge is when things don't get executed as expected, and in an imperfect situation, that's going to happen a little bit. These players knew a lot of what the scenario was going to be, but I think Jim hit the nail on the head. The hardship really about having to stay around afterward, that's the complexity of it all. And I think that that's one of the things that we're never going to really know, because we don't know what the governing bodies within that decision making are going to do. But from a general player point of view, the majority are feeling pretty good, pretty fortunate. And if you look at what the USTA has done, Jim is exactly right. They have not pivoted historically. They have been so malleable to get this off the ground and to get it up and running. And for us to have tennis, I think it's been an incredible success, not without hardship, not without issues. There'll be more to come. But for me as a tennis fan, and more importantly, just for us as individuals to see it, I think things have gone pretty well so far.
Yeah, less than 5 positive tests in the bubble between players and staff among thousands and thousands of tests. That's really good, but we're not home yet. We've got another week or so to go.
All right, there are several players who were exposed to pair who are still in the tournament, so we'll see if there are any developments with the health department as they continue their run.